What is happening, everybody? All right, so I haven't ever done this before. Figured I'd do a live video, see what you guys are up to tonight. Weather out here sucks in Houston, so figured I'd hang out with you guys. Roll over here, grab me a frosty beverage, and hang out with you guys. I don't really know how this works, so I guess if you got questions, post them up. Something, I don't know. I guess what most folks will typically ask me, it's one of those weird deals where, hold on, let me see something real quick. Get this chat thing going. Hope I get this right. I have no idea what I'm doing, so bear with me. This is horrible. This is absolutely unwatchable. All right, what the fuck am I doing? Is that... Oh, God, I've already screwed this up. All right. Chat is on. Oh, that goes backwards. What does this button do? Hang on. I'm trying to figure this out as I go here. Oh, that doesn't do anything. All right, so anyway, a lot of times folks will just ask me weird questions in my comments on videos that I make. Comments that I may have gone over, or I'm sorry, topics that I may have gone over on several different videos. Usually it has something to do with the Mopar community. It's always, what mods are best for my car? What kind of horsepower gains can I get? Stuff like that. So, hey, what's up, man? Well, actually, yeah, it's got a drag pack on it now. And that really hasn't given me any decent results yet, only because I was a little bitch with how I was launching the car last night. And I really shouldn't say launching. It was a one-hit deal, running on a set of ET Street SSs. What's up, Jay? Run on a set of ET Street SSs that had absolutely no chance of hooking on the street. They're an older set, so I did a burnout and tried to really get them nice and hot, but because of the performance that they had on the street, which I only had one good hookup out of that thing, and it ran like a scalded dog, but anyway, I was a little sissy launching it, and it didn't do much better than the Tri-5s, and we got rained out, so I didn't get a chance to make another hit. So anyway, sorry about that. Wish I had more to report other than just massaging intake manifolds, trying to get the best shape on the throat of that intake manifold. That's been the only other mod that I've done, but other than that, not really. eMark 692, any mods on an SRT10? Man, I gotta tell you, dude, SRT10 is a pretty sweet truck. Just understand that you're not going to get super far with that thing without spending a significant amount of money. Now, that being said, Viper engine loves nitrous. So just know that coming into it. That platform, well, I know it really well considering I've had 3 Vipers. Sneak up on it, get a good wet shot on it, but 150 shot will get you right where you need to be to start, but they will consume more nitrous than that, believe me. So hang on, my beer is getting hot. Let me see what's going on here. I've been working on 2015 Laramie. Yeah, sweet truck, absolutely. You really can't go wrong with them. 15 is going to be better than 14. This is for Daniel Davidson, by the way. 15 is going to be better than the 14. The lifter, I think there was a redesign on the lifter, make them a little bit more robust. At least that's what I've heard anyway. And because of that, yeah, I would recommend it. For the older trucks, mine, 2014, already had to have the lifters replaced, but I don't think you'd have that problem. So, hang on, let me get this back up here. JH, waiting for my wide body scat. Oh, man, I'm waiting for you to get that car too, man. I'll tell you something. After spending time with the Demon, I have really gravitated towards that wide body. So, man, the look of it looks great. I also like the fact that it is a bit of a departure from the more traditional look. I think that to me admittedly, it took me a minute to warm up to it, but because it's a more modern interpretation of the classic lines of the Challenger, it really made me gravitate towards it. Yeah, it weighs a little bit more, only if you're considering the wheels, though. Body cladding doesn't really weigh anything. So, hang on, let me see something here. Chasing cars. What are the best street tires for the 392? Nitto Tri 5R, man. Cannot do better than that. I've had a lot of success with that tire, not only in a racing application at the drag strip, but what's up, mommy? But also just in terms of being a good daily driver type of a tire. I actually get pretty decent mileage out of the Tri 5s, and they do surprisingly well in the rain. I've been caught in the rain quite a few times with those tires. Now, the question's always, well, are they going to hook as well as a Mickey Thompson? No, not really, but I can't really complain. So, I'm not making all that power that the Hellcat guys are making, but I don't need to. I'm doing just fine with mine. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Bad Hemi, E85, 93, or should I just do the straight 85 tune? All right, so that, I would stick with just the straight E85 for now. Mainly because I'm not really convinced that the flex fuel stuff has been sorted out, but it is coming. I know HP Tuner's doing a lot of work to get that sorted out. The latest beta version of HP Tuners has got a ton of provisions in there for the flex fuel, and I'm waiting to hear back from Alex over at Pites Performance. Don't forget about that, guys. Look up Pites Performance. You need hot rod stuff in your Mopar. But I'm waiting to hear back from him. We're going to use my car as the test mule once all that stuff gets sorted out. So, 392, 100 wet shot. Any suggestions? Yes. Make sure you get that thing tuned. A lot of guys will just throw the nitrous on the car and let her eat. The problem with that is fueling. I don't like the idea of just throwing nitrous at a 392 without a solid tune on the car. And what I mean by that is it needs to have a real dyno tune, not just a email tune or something like that. It needs to be on a loaded dyno under heavy load when it gets hit with that spray. I also recommend 100 shot, probably wouldn't need a progressive controller, but make sure you get a window switch for sure. But again, the ring lands sit high up on the piston. Fuel quality might be a little bit sketchy one time. Hit the spray, pinch a ring land, and that's all she wrote for that motor. So let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Hookie Times. Great to see you live. Thanks, man. It's the first time I've ever done this. It's pretty cool. Brass Monkeys, 22s. I think Replica makes them, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So check those out. Haven't seen them in 22s. Let's see. 2019 Chargers, but not the Challengers is what I'm guessing. Saving the best for last. Where do you think? Not yet. When I first started looking into the 2019, I was looking at the Red Eye, and my understanding was that I wouldn't be able to get my hands on one until January, February. But that was very early on in the process, and I have no idea how deep that is. But I can't wait to see them. Also, can't wait to see how that 1320 does in real life. I think I got a little something for that 1320, though. Is a trans tune a good idea, and why? Bad Hemi thinks it's the best idea you can possibly have. I can't stress this enough when it comes to transmission tuning. That is kind of one of my, I don't know, not pet peeves, but it's something that I'm really into, is that transmission tuning. It absolutely will change the complexion of the car without doing any damage to the engine or the transmission or anything near that, for that matter. And this is just in changing shift points, and mainly shift points under partial throttle. You can really make the car a lot more lively, especially on partial throttle downshifts, cruising down the freeway. You want to get around somebody, just kind of tip into the throttle. You get a mild downshift. A little bit farther, you get a second downshift. I like that. It just kind of adds to the drivability of the car in total. But it also isn't overstressing an engine. You're not playing with fueling or timing or anything like that. So Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you've got an engine tune and you don't have a trans tune, you would say some guys say you only have a half of a tune. You've only got about a third of the tune. Um, I have had more success, by the way, by picking up ET in transmission tuning than I have in engine tuning. So take that for what it's worth, and that goes for the trucks and the cars as well. So yeah, to get your trans tune for sure. Uh, let's see. Glue Barstool, I'd trade my 15 scat for a 1320 for sure. Hey, I'll tell you what, man, I'm just happy to see Mopar doing something for us NA guys. You know, it kind of kills me a little bit that they didn't do a little bit more. I've been real bitchy, I guess you could say, about the fact that they only left the 309 rear gear set in that car. I think they could have done a little bit better with that. With the resources that they've got, I think that they could have gone to ZF and put together a 331, 342, something, you know, not quite a 350 anything, because it's, the transmission ratios are just too aggressive for it. I know some guys have gone with a 370. Mixed bag on the reviews on that. Not so sure I would do that with mine, but man, I'd love to see something like a 331 rear gear set. On paper, at least the math would dictate that would be ideal for the car going through the traps in a quarter mile. So, you know, 327, 331, 323, it'd all be great. You know, just to get that extra. Really, it has nothing to do with the launch either. It's being able to run the car out on miles per hour on the big end of the track. So there's that. Oh, hang on. Where's Ms. Hicks? I don't know. She's floating around here somewhere, I'm sure, playing with the puppies. Let's see. And it's Mrs. Mason now, by the way. Do I think the red eye is worth it? Jose Padilla. I mean, I'll tell you something. Yeah, I do. I would say that it's well worth it, as a matter of fact. The reason for that is you get a lot of the benefits of the Demon without paying the suspension penalty for the Demon. If you haven't ever driven it or been around guys that have talked a lot about those cars, the suspension, although it's great for the drag strip, let me give you an idea that that car in sport mode for the suspension is as soft as a SRT or a Hellcat in street mode. It's kind of floaty, and it's not that you get a disconnected feel or anything like that driving the car. It's just not as sporty. Now, that's not to say it's a bad thing. In fact, for long distance cruising, it's actually really comfortable to run that thing in drag mode, because you just kind of get this real like old school Chrysler Imperial ride out of that car. It's something that a lot of people don't realize about that car, but it's actually kind of one of the more endearing facts of that car. But as far as being sporty, you know, having real good steering response, handling just the way everything feels tight, you can't really, you're not going to be able to beat the red eye, and especially a red eye in the red eye with a wide body setup. That's really going to be the car. I think it's going to be a lot of guys are going to be going after that car. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, and they take to mods just as well as a Hellcat. So let's see. Sorry, these aren't scrolling. So hang on a second. I got to scroll this up here. Samuel, do I think they'll ever come out with a new 426? Yeah, well, so here's the deal. The teaser videos. That was on April 26th, Mopar was putting out a bunch of videos basically saying, hey, it's Hemi Day, you know, 426, which I thought was, I don't know. To answer the question, no, I doubt it. There's way too much R&D that's going to have to go into that engine. I think they placed all of their resources into the Demon and getting that package to work well. And realistically, no matter how badass you make a 426, it's not going to mess with a Hellcat at all. I mean, it might get close, but you know, then you start talking about the red eye with the larger compressor, albeit a little bit less efficient than the one on the Hellcat. It still does the job just fine. And you got to think about it. They got to recoup costs somewhere, and that 426 is going to be kind of a hard sell when you're already putting out cars that are going to walk all over it. Now, that being said, I would love for them to make a 426 that would work well on the street. that would spin to about 6,200 RPM, 6,300 RPM. Uh, Long-term warrantability becomes an issue at that point, but man, just a slight revision here, slight revision there, and it'd work great. But that being said, it's got a lot of ground to cover in terms of competition with the 392. And the 392 is already a proven package. And really, if you pick up a little bit more power over the 392, that would be fine. Torque would be better, but I just don't see him doing it, which sucks because it's Mopar, man. I mean, and besides, very few people even realize what the 392 cubic inch, the historical value that comes with that. So, it's the 426 is what put him on the map, not the 392. So yeah, they need to get on that. Let's see. Oh shit, my battery's about to keel over. Hang on. Hold please. This is production value at its finest, I know. Bear with me. Plug this thing in so I don't go. Okay, where we at? Let's see. Bear with me, guys. I gotta get through some of these. Bad Hemi, our Demon injector is a good idea to pair with my 85 setup. If you're talking about a 392 or a 6.1, Hellcat injectors are fine. The only downside to those injectors, though, I know that they're less expensive and all of that, but the downside to them is that they're not near as good as something that you would get from Fuel Injector Connection. Plus, because those are more easily rebuildable, that means that when you get them, you can have them flow balanced, and they're already usually pretty good from the manufacturer. But I've seen variances on the Hellcat injectors, and by association the Demon injectors, I'm sure that would suggest that there's the manufacturing tolerances with those injectors are going to be a little bit higher. So just something to think about. It's a less expensive alternative. Most guys that do it don't have any problems, but it's just something to think about if you're looking to do that E85 conversion. Good thing is you don't need a fuel pump. Stephen Venoy, I hope I'm saying that right. 6.1 Charger, thinking about buying Edelbrock supercharger. Actually, I'll tell you what, that's not a bad way to go. The E4 supercharger, although not very upgradable, in other words, you wouldn't want to try to spin that compressor real hard. Man, I got to tell you, they're not bad from the factory. They're a little bit, the tune is going to be soft. I'll tell you that right now. But aside from that, man, not a bad option. I mean, you'll pick up good torque, good horsepower. I can tell you this, I haven't seen one on a 392 or a 6.1, but I have seen quite a few on 5.7s, and they make identical power numbers to my 392 on a Mustang dyno. So if that does anything for you, torque looks good, horsepower looks good, compact, clean looking install. Can't really upgrade them, but let's be honest, how deep you really want to get into that thing. I mean, at that point, you want to throw some power at it, buy a Hellcat. Let's see. Hellcat ain't got nothing for my Pro Charge 500-inch dart. Cheers on that. Let's see. Where are we at here? Yeah, man, 392. I like mine, man. I have yet to have a real bitch session about my car. I got to tell you something about my 392. I have to tell you, so, and I've been a little bit slack, by the way, guys, as far as making videos. I haven't had the opportunity or the time to really sit down and make videos. My work schedule before just would not allow it. I mean, we were up at the shop until, if we got out if we got out before 9:30, it was rare. I mean, it was, 10:30 pretty much every night. So, it's a good question, by the way, or good topic anyway. I don't have any complaints or issues with my 392. I don't really have a reason to, complain. Although, you can always talk about the weight of the car and this and all that, whatever, man. Look, I got the exact car that I wanted. Nice, big, comfy, and the thing runs mid-11s. So what's not to love, right? I guess if I had one complaint about that engine, I don't know. It's that there's so few aftermarket manufacturers that are in the game right now, but I mean, that's not necessarily a bad place to be. I mean, think about it. If an aftermarket manufacturer is going to want to make parts, they need to make parts that are going to show a solid gain. And right now, there aren't any parts for the 392 that are showing a significant gain aside from a camshaft. Uh, Even long tube headers at that point are a little suspect. But if you get a camshaft, maybe go with long tube headers. A BBK actually makes a pretty sweet set of shorties. Um, Clearance issues are a little bit, but still a pretty good set of headers. And you can either go that route, clean up the welds on your stock manifolds, whatever the case is. But yeah, that'd be the only bitch about it, is that the car is really that good from the factory in terms of making power. It's kind of hard to play with them and get real solid gains unless you go with a cam. But go with a cam, then you're going up against the limitations of the intake manifold. Then it's a mismatch combination, and it just turns into a headache. But anyway, what were we talking about again? Let's see. Oh, hey, what's up, man? Josh, how you liking your drag wheels and tire setup you have now? Actually, they don't suck. Not bad. I guess what I could say about those wheels and tires is they're a good budget way to go. They're the race stars, the cheap ones. I'll put you like that. They're better than stock, less rolling resistance. I'm running the new Mickey Thompson 28-inch front runner. Those are pretty good. I like them. Running radials all the way around. I'm running the ET Street SS's. Decent enough tire. It's an older set, so having a hard time getting them to hook on the street. Only had them hook on the street once, and it ripped. But the reality is that shit. Breaking news. ET Street R's just showed up. Woo! So. Yeah, those will be going on the car here in a couple of months. I'm going to get through these ET Street SS's and then throw these on for the winter season. Hopefully they'll bite, and going after that stock cam record this year. I'm going to see if I can dig that one a little bit deeper this year. So we'll see. JH, 180 would be great. Yeah, absolutely. Worked fantastic. Let's see. Symphonics. Mason, I have to make a hard choice. Keeping my base C6 LS3 and mod it. Save the money for a base. What is going on here? Or save that money for a base C7. Damn. Okay. This is a subject near and dear to my heart. You know what? I'll tell you something. Oh, hang on. It depends on what you're looking for, man. The C7, it's a better car than the C6 in every measurable metric. If it's in the budget and if you can wait it out, get the C7. And I'll just leave it at that. C6s are fun. You can mod them, make a bunch of power, but the reality with that car is it'll never run like the C7. And more importantly, the driving impressions that I got from the C7 is it is a much more refined car. I'll put it to you like this. It's as far removed from the C6 as the C6 is from a C4 in terms of driving feel. So take that for whatever that's worth. Speed Maniacs, brother. Long time. Funny thing, 5.7 felt a little snappier than my 392 right now. Yep. Yes, I am still running catless mid pipes. That was done though, and I want to kind of set the table on this one. The running catless was done specifically for testing purposes, and it was also for consistency issues within the tune. It was to keep it away from catalytic converter temperature override, so to speak. You go into cap protect mode, and it throws fuel, yanks timing. Basically, it kills the power of the car once it thinks the cats are getting to a certain temperature. So, still running catless, but on the dyno, no difference in power whatsoever. Picked up a little bit of torque, but I mean, not enough to really write home about. I mean, there's plenty of guys that were making the same power as me with cats as I'm making without cats. It doesn't really sound any different either. What's up? What's up, Rob? Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, it's beers with Brian this evening because it's freaking raining. Got rained out last night, man. I was going to give you a shout. So, yeah, I got one hit on the drag pack. Left like a little sissy. I should have just bonsai launched it. Anyway, I'll give you a shout. I'll tell you about it later. But the upside is that it did go 1177, but the mile an hour was garbage because the grains, yeah, 127 or 129. Yeah. Low temperature, but, well, low for down here, but killing me. Daniel, how's the mile per gallon with the Ram and the 5.7? 20 to 22 on the freeway, no matter what. That's just no. And that's, oh, by the way, I have a new work truck. It's a fleet model with the Hemi and the 323 gears. It gets identical fuel mileage to my personal truck, the old work truck, which is the Hemi with 392 gears and no MDS. So if that gives you any indication, on average, depending on how much I'm driving that thing, 18 and a half, 19 is what I typically get. I do quite a bit of freeway driving. If I'm doing a lot of in-town, 17-ish. It actually gets really good fuel mileage considering it's a 5,500 pound tank. Speed. Okay, so long tubes. Yeah, I mean, with a cam that can take advantage of long tubes, you'll be in good shape if you've got that cam. This is for Speed Maniac, my man. But the problem is if you can't really take advantage of them, it's not really dead weight. It will help partial throttle, but man, I just haven't seen any gains on the dyno. As a matter of fact, I have a nasty habit of killing a little bit of power on the big end on cars with stock cams, but not by much. Basically, the power curve just basically kind of flattens out and stays a little bit flat as opposed to keep rising. But typically it's a little bit higher on its way up. So let's see. Phoenix 98. Does the SRT suspension settings really affect launches at the drag strip like better weight transfer? Hell no, they don't work for shit at the track. I will say this though. I have tried that car in track mode. I've tried it in sport mode and I've tried it in street mode. The car, if it hooks in sport, it doesn't matter if it to put it in street. And I've also found that the car, it never improves running it in street. And in fact, I've only seen it improve by going from street to sport. Don't really run it too much in track at the drag strip, although I have run it in track at the drag strip. It didn't really make a difference. So it's a long way of saying no. Let's see. Bad Hemi, 2015, 305.7. Stay with the stock intake. Stay with the stock intake. Either send it out to Peak Speed or MMX to have them clean it up for you, or just leave it alone. Don't go with the Edelbrock, please. Whatever you do, you'll thank me for that later. Jose Padilla, if I had a Hellcat Red Eye, what would be your first mod? And if money was not an issue? If money wasn't an issue, I would have a Demon as opposed to a Red Eye. But if I did choose to go with the Red Eye, which I probably would, I would first of all order it with a 309 rear gear set. That would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is take it to Pice Performance Tunes and have a tune put on that car, transmission and engine, and put a set of drag wheels and tires on it with a cat delete pipe. That would all be done at the same time. So I'll consider all of those a single mod, and I would just let her eat after that. Oh yeah, can't forget the drive shaft. Even though it's got an upgraded drive shaft, I'm pretty sure it'll explode at some point. So anyway, there's that. Speed Mag 5.7 manifolds are horrible. They're worse than horrible. They're deplorable. I can't believe they even put those on that car or truck or anything. Ben Clemens, what are my thoughts on buying a cheap 5.7 Challenger and doing a stroker kit? I'll tell you what. So the 392 stroker for the 5.7 is actually it's a really good combination. The 5.7 has a smaller bore size. So when you put the longer stroke on it, it actually, because of the faster piston speed, is able to really work well with the cylinder heads. If you've got like a 2015 and up 5.7, yeah, I won't admit to this if you ask me, but there are times when I would love to get my hands on a 5.7 and do just that to it, as a matter of fact. 392 stroker, one of my camshafts, long tubes, a little bit of nitrous. Be a freaking 10-second car on the cheap. But yeah, no, I think it'd work out fine. Let's see. Scat 426. What do I think of the MMX 85mm throttle body? I don't think too much of it. Here's the deal. Well, shit. Hold that thought. I'll give you exactly what I think about it. All right, so what do I think about that throttle body? Well, the problem that you're going to have with that throttle body, here we go. Scat 426. Oh, shit, I just set off my alarm. The problem you're going to have with that is, see down in here in the throat of this intake manifold? This opening right here is significantly larger, and you can see it kind of tear down in there. The problem with that larger throttle body is unless you've done quite a bit of work to the throat, to the intake manifold, you won't be able to take advantage of it. So if you've got a ported intake manifold, they're fine. In fact, I've seen a KPA drop of about, and that's just when this thing goes wide open throttle, how much vacuum is still in the manifold. With good porting and with the slightly larger throttle body at 84, 85, I've seen the pressure drop decrease. So in other words, you have more manifold pressure, quote unquote, to the tune of about 1%. So you figure it's picking up a little bit of power, but again, this thing's going to be your limitation, not necessarily that throttle body. So anyway, I hope that answers that question, or confuses you further. I hope I didn't do that. All right, we got Sphinx is going back to another conversation we were having, saying, I know the C7 is better car as far as interior chassis, but it's only 24 more horsepower, 436 versus 460. And I don't track my car, straight line negligible since, okay, well, yeah, you got to remember though, true, but the C7 is making more power everywhere in the power band. So if you get a chance, I mean, the best thing to do is just go drive the thing and see what you think. I mean, you don't know until you try. And quite honestly, I think if you do take that car for a spin, I have a feeling you're going to be real happy with it. So, but let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Scat 426. No, do not do email tuning. But Alex does do remote tuning. For that, you would need to either have access to a dyno or have the HP Tuner software, computer's already unlocked, that whole deal. But no, to answer your question quickly, unfortunately, no email tuning at this time, unless you've got HP Tuner's cable and have a wideband. Then in that case, it's pretty easy to do email tuning. Just have to get a hold of him and he can walk you through the steps. Let's see. D-Mob, what do you think about the Pontiac G8? Oh, dude, freaking love the G8s. As a matter of fact, if you look at the G8, it's almost a perfect car. The only problem with the G8 is that there's just not enough of them that are out there really putting in work. At least not the way that you'd see with the GTO. Man, I love G8s. Really cool car. It's a shame that we don't have more of them over here. You ported to 85. Hey, let me ask you this: did you get all the way into, and did you mic and measure all of the nooks and crannies in the throat of that thing. I tell you what, I've put more work in on intake manifolds in that one area, reshaping and recontouring, basically sculpting for speed, to get those manifolds to work. So take a look at that. If you've got something to measure, 84, 85 millimeters, make sure you're getting that actual amount all the way through. You're going to have some pressure drop as the thing changes shape, but if you've got, as long as you've got the same amount of what would be surface area for that area going through the throat, you'll be in good shape. Can I cool demonology? Yes, you absolutely can cool fuel. It won't really do anything for you because technically speaking, you would be adding fuel mass, which would then interfere with your pulse width modulation tables. So no, cool the air, let the fuel do its own thing. Besides, fuel actually is really good at absorbing heat from air. Again, it's one of the reasons why you don't have to have a heat exchanger or an intercooler on blow-through carburetor combinations. It does a really good job with that. Good cam for a boosted 5.7 single turbo custom grind. Don't get crazy with the cam specs though. You want to make sure that that thing is going to have enough exhaust duration to be able to evacuate the cylinder and pressurize the compressor side of that thing. So go with a custom grind. Depends on how much booster we're running is what's going to determine what the specs would be. Let's see. What's up, y'all? Oh yeah, demonology. Thank you for hit the thumbs up. Let's see. So other stuff. What else is going on? Well, I have not, like I say, I haven't really been messing too much with my car. I mainly haven't been doing a lot with my car. It's funny, I'm the guy that, specs and designs camshafts, and I don't have a cam in mind, mainly because, and that's a question that gets asked a lot, you know how it is, man, and this is what I tell everybody, the cobbler's kids don't wear any shoes. One of the main reasons that I haven't done that, number one, I want to see how far I can take the stock cam with a 392, and not only just a 392, but an SRT, just see how deep I can get into the 11s with that car. I may put one of my cams in it at a later date, but man, I'm just having too much fun with that car. I really am, and I got to tell you, it's the one car that I haven't really been extremely motivated to do a lot of mods to. It's just been a lot of fun, and it always runs and drives great. Take that thing off of take that thing off the drag strip and can run it all over the country and not have any issues, not worry about fuel issues, none of that. So let's see, what do we got here? Battery 300, no problem. Hey, what's up, Midwest? How you doing, bud? You ever going to come out to HMP? Actually, I'm out there every once in a while. I've got a couple of buddies of mine that I'll roll out there with. I like HMP. It's a little bit of a stretch for me to run out there, but especially since I've got Baytown's right here. But I do run out there every once in a while. I like running at HMP because the track prep there is sweet. I mean, you can't ask for better track prep than HMP. So if I'm needing data logging, if I'm testing parts, every once in a while I'll run it out there to HMP. It's just the problem with me running at HMP is I get a little bit spoiled, I guess you can say. So yeah, there's been some times where I've had to readjust my driving technique when I get to what was Royal Purple. Now it's at Houston Raceway Park again. But to their credit, they have been doing a really good job with that track lately. So if I just wasn't driving like a sissy last time I was out there, I'd have been a little bit happier with how I was doing. Thoughts on the new GT500 taking forever to come out? Man, that's poking the bear. I tell you what, I made a video about this. I think that might be what you're referencing. And yeah, it's hard for me to have an opinion on a car that keeps living in rumor, that more in rumor and fake news than anything else. Look, let me answer that question by taking a few steps back. Number one, look, I am in love with the old GT500s. I still think they're one of the more fun cars. They're really the beginning of these big horsepower, but more importantly, big block torque. You know, not only just big torque, but big block torque. Yeah, they were the genesis of that. I mean, you can make the argument that the Terminator is in that conversation as well, which it is, and rightfully so. But so is the Lightning, for that matter. So when you take it as a whole, yeah, I hope that that car can live up to that standard. But I don't think for the money, we're starting to come up on that argument for that car. Anybody that's a Ford fan will be able to take that car and line it up against a 19 GT with an automatic and maybe beat it until the guy with the 19 GT decides to break out his credit card and spend some money and put a 9-second car together and basically jerk the tears right out of the face of the GT 500 owners. So it's going to be a great car. It's going to be awesome. Everybody's going to be in love with it. It's going to be the new darling of whatever publication you're reading. But I don't know. Until then, I just can't really get excited about it. I'd love to get excited about it. I just can't. Let's see. Justin, what am I looking at? Price. It looks like price-wise, have you and Pikes grind one for me. Let's see. Oh, hey, what's going on? So to get that knocked out for you, crew cab. So, oh yeah. I'll tell you what. Give Alex a shout. He can walk you through the pricing. It just depends on which cam you want to go with and how aggressive you want to go. Any cam that I put together is going to require springs. So real quick and an easy way to look at it: springs, push rods, the cam core itself, and really, let's see, lifters. You're going to want to go the full set of Hellcat lifters as well if you haven't already got those on the thing. So, just some things to think about. If it's not a Pikes Performance cam, there are some pretty decent camshafts out there that'll work for your combination, but the reality is that you really are going to need a custom grind. So, but typically walking around price, I hate to tell you this, man, but it's going to be somewhere north of $4,000, but it's well worth it. Definitely pick up power. I'll put it like this. The last I did put together a cam for a 392 D1 supercharger, stock intake manifold. Anyway, long story short, on 104, not making a ton of boost, made 700 horsepower to the rear wheels on the Mustang dyno. Let's see where we at here. Sorry. Suggestion on drag radials: do 17s fit my Scat Pack on the back? Well, you didn't see it earlier. Yeah, they'll fit yours and they'll fit mine too. Hey, look at that. So these will be going on the car for this winter season. These are ET Street R's. Basically, they're the drag radial of choice if all you're going to be doing is drag racing. If you're talking about doing some street driving, get a set of Tri-5s. Man, I love Tri-5s. I run those on my car and you'll never have a complaint. Trust me. Tyler, what's up, man? What do y'all think Mopar needs to do with their NA motor in order to become the dominant car again? They need to take that motor and put it in a lighter freaking platform. But aside from that, I'm not so sure that bumping up displacement is going to do a whole lot, although it wouldn't hurt. It's definitely going to be a step in the right direction if they ever decide to do it, but I don't think they will, mainly due to warrantability issues. That being said, a little bit different camshaft in that car and a slight redesign to the intake manifold would pick up an easy 40 horsepower like that. Wouldn't even be a problem. Still retain good bottom end torque and put it back on top. That'd be what I would do. Michael Smith, there will be a Charger Demon before the GT 500. And I'll tell you what, that would be badass. I would love to see a Charger with a Demon, at least, if nothing else, the red eye engine and a wide body kit. Bad Hemi, any ideas on adding power to an NA 5.7? Yeah, same stuff applies. I mean, camshaft, ported intake, ported throttle body, not just the ports on the outside. A true through ported throttle body. Whatever. Yeah, for sure. Put a different set of exhaust manifolds on that car or truck. Anything. They're terrible from the factory. Yeah, quarter mile is this Speed Maniac. Quarter mile is better, but at least we had HMP. We get more than 2 runs in. I tell you what, that's real talk right there. The problem with Royal Purple and Houston Raceway Park now is that, yeah, you're right. And the other issue is that you get a lot of guys out there on street tires that tear that track up, man. And HMP does drag tire only events. Actually, they do it. I think it's every week. So on Sundays, and makes it a lot more enjoyable for guys that are actually out there either trying to collect data on their cars or trying to do something along the lines of either work on their launch, work on consistency, something like that. It's a great place to do that because number one, you get more runs in, and number two, it's an 8th mile, so you're not really beating on the car as hard, at least not on the big end. So, yeah, I definitely feel you there, man. But Royal Purple's getting better. They're just not anywhere near HMP's level yet. Symphonics, all these Ford guys are going to have you burn their Venom Kills Demon shirts. Look, that's this Venom Kills Demons. That's adorable. Believe it when I see it. I don't see any GT 500s out there stock giving any demons any hard times anytime soon. D-Mob, hey, thanks, man. This is my first live feed. I've never done one of these before, so it's kind of weird. Trying to read this. Okay, so if you guys have never done this, Demonology's done this a few times. I've actually got the idea from him. So I've never done one of these before, and so it's really weird. As I'm talking to you, there's like feeds that'll like stuff that pops up, but it doesn't scroll or anything like that. So that's why I keep having to stick my thumb over here and scroll through this. But yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Let's see. King, let's see. What mod should I do first on 392 motor? Hellcat airbox, Hellcat air filter. It's the very first thing I would do with the snorkel. It should have come like that from the factory. It's ridiculous that it didn't. D-Mod, 15, 18K budget. What would I buy? Man, that's a great question. What would I get for just under 20K? Depends on what I was going to do with it. You could probably find something like, okay, so let's say you just wanted to build a hot rod and that's what you were going after. I would probably say Mustang. I don't know. It's hard to say though, because it would depend on if I'm building something for road course, if I'm building something for drag racing, something that's going to do both street, strip, maybe even a little bit of road course. But for 15, 18 grand, it is real tough to argue against a C5 Corvette. It's also incredibly hard for me to argue against a 5th gen Camaro. Between the two of those, I would go 5th gen Camaro, and either that or get a pickup truck. Get a pickup truck, anything Chevrolet LS powered, and throw a turbo on it and go out and just wreck shop. Daniel, not to overflow the chat. Are there any cheaper mods for the 5.7s to gain power? Is it best to leave them stock? They're already really good from the factory. And here's something I want to. So for the 5.7 guys out there, let's chat about your platform real quickly. I happen to have 2 of them sitting in my driveway. Look, I love the 5.7, and when you look at it from an objective point of view, just take a few steps, back for a minute. Get out of Mopar mentality. It makes 395 horsepower and about the same torque. That's the same as a C5 Z06. So basically, you've got a C5 Z06 power plant, which, oh yeah, by the way, makes significantly more torque than that engine down low. It's already doing a lot with what it's shackled with already. A tune, engine tune and trans tune will definitely pick up power. You don't have to go aggressive though. You can just make a few changes in the tune, spend the rest of the time on trans tuning, and pick up. Well, the last one I did picked up 0.3 in about 3 miles an hour, and that was literally doing fueling. Hardly any changes to the timing table. In fact, the only thing I did differently with his timing table is just kind of smooth it out a little bit. So I didn't really add timing at all. In fact, some cells lost a little bit of timing when I interpolated side, up, down. But that being said, that's all you need to do. You don't have to do a whole lot. But they're already a lot of fun. So rough estimate on custom cam ballpark. Full install anywhere between $4,000 and $4,300. Depends on what you're going to end up paying for labor on that. Tyler Cohen, do I think Dodge could make the next Challenger a smaller, lighter car while still maintaining the sales? Yeah, absolutely you could. Especially if they chose to use choose to use a platform that they can still retain some of that retro feel or retro style that everybody's basically gotten used to with Mopar. If they can modernize a CUDA look and drop 300, 400, 500 pounds, absolutely they'd make. In fact, they'd probably gain sales, because you have to remember the Challenger, just the shape of it is much like the Mustang in that it does draw a lot from its past. But there's other manufacturers that do the same. You ever seen a Jeep? And don't forget the Porsche 911, or whatever variant they're calling it. That's still basically a 911 that you would have seen, and what anybody from that era would be extremely familiar with, today. So yeah, they're not the only ones doing a retro style by any stretch of the imagination. If they can just keep building upon that, don't make it cartoonish, stay, respectful. I'm not going to say true to form, but just stay respectful to their roots. Play on that, make it a little bit lighter, keep the 392 as it is, maybe mix in an aluminum block. I mean, would that kill it? Anyway, do something like that, definitely be a big deal, for me anyway. So Fox again, realistic chance the Viper will make a return, and why did they cancel it in the first place? Oh my God. Yes, it is coming back. They canceled it because nobody was buying the damn thing. And this is actually going back a few years. I'm not trying to be that guy. I knew about this. Actually, I did know about the Viper getting canned about 2.5 years before it was actually released. The reason why they canned it is they're incapable of competing with Corvette at that game. And because nobody was buying it, and because it was not offered with an automatic transmission, which is half the reason why it wasn't selling, they decided to go ahead and let that platform run its course. And then for the new platform, my understanding is that it will have a V8 option, and that it will also be optioned with an automatic. So they're catching on and trying to actually go up against Corvette, play Corvette's game, because let's be honest, that's the baddest ass brand around, is the Corvette brand in terms of American sports cars as opposed to pony or muscle cars. D-Mob, what are the best cams for the 6.1 and 6.4 in my opinion? Custom grind by Pipes Performance Tunes, by all means. But if you can't get your hands on one of those, Comp 270. Although I don't really like the low profile on the Comp 270, it does actually work. So can't argue with success at all. Frank Davis, E85 versus race gas versus Boostane. Man, that's a video all into itself. If you're asking me straight away, E85 is number 1. Race gas is number 2, and then deeper down on the list would be Boostane. And that's mainly because it's mainly because of what's the best way to put this? Yeah, are you going to be able to mix it the same way every time? I know, I see her. Boosting is great for convenience. If you've got access to quality gasoline, top tier gasoline, Shell, Mobil, Exxon, whatever, then yeah, if you're mixing it properly, then yes, it absolutely works. So at least there's that to know, this stuff does work. But in terms of actually making outright power and being able to make the most power with the most reliability, that goes to E85 every time. But don't forget, depending on how hard you're going to turn a supercharger, and I'm assuming this is for a boosted application, then yeah, you're going to want to have the other parts you're going to need: bigger injectors, possibly bigger pumps. If it's for NA, race gas or butane, don't bother with the 85 on an NA car. It's just really not worth it, in my opinion. Let's see. Yeah, 650 horse, 600 torque NA. That would be awesome. I'm in with you on that. Go after the Corvette with a mid-engine Viper. I don't know if there's very many purists that would be cool with that in terms of Viper guys. But that being said, anything at this point will do, because I don't like seeing Corvette just stand out there uncontested. Let's see. Hayden, is a used RT Challenger manual even a likely comparison to a used Mustang? Performance, price, any advantage to the RT? Man, it depends. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to the RT, manual RT. It's a bigger car. It's hard to you really can't compare the two. It's a larger car. It has a bit more of a presence to it, and if you set the car up tastefully, tasteful mods, get it to sit right, good looking wheel and tire setup, have it sound good. It's a sweet car, and it's a bigger car. I don't know. To me, it just feels a bit better to drive than the Mustang. And not that there's any indignity with driving a Mustang. It's just that you're going to see about 5,000 of your new closest friends if you're running a Mustang. So, let's see. Frank's asking. Oh, we're still on Boostain stuff. Let's see. Anybody here of Boostain causing issues or just need to replace plugs, O2s? So the problem with the additives is that if you read the owner's manual, it will say specifically that they do not recommend any additives. So it's designed to run on gasoline. It's not designed to run on butane. Again, it's an additive. Chemists have come up with this, assuming that they know what they're up to, which I'm sure they do. It's hot as hell in here. You should be in decent shape. I would just be weary of it and use it only if you don't have direct line of sight access to quality racing gasoline. Demonology, what's the best way to drop weight from the Challenger? Great question. And there's some things about the Challenger that really do seem to go a bit forgotten. First of all, if you don't need the rear seat, get that rear seat delete from Mopar. There is about a 45-pound weight reduction. Obviously, wheels and tires are a good place to start with weight reduction as well. But really, once you start down this path, lightweight seats are another way to go. Once you start going down this path, though, you're going to find out pretty quickly that you're going to run out of options that are really viable. And what I mean by that is, okay, well, you can run lighter weight seats. True, but then cost starts to become an issue. Lightweight wheel tire combinations, that can be a bit of a stinger too. Dropping about 50 pounds, 60 pounds here and there will help, but it doesn't necessarily always equate to better ETs. But that being said, as far as I'm concerned, the back seat on a Challenger is useless anyway. You can't even fold the thing down for crying out loud. So anyway, I would say best way probably is going to be do a rear seat delete. And aside from that, I don't know. Mixing a salad. That's what I've been doing. I've been cutting weight, getting ready for this winter, man. Let's see. Jay, stop eating fast food. Actually, I've been cutting weight for about a month now. Down about 15 pounds. Still haven't seen any ET improvement, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh. Hayden, RT Challenger manual. Is it reasonable goal to go high 11s NA with potential cam and full bolt-ons? Slicks and skinnies, possibly 93. I wouldn't say it's out of the question, but you are fighting a serious uphill battle, my friend. I would say if you want to run 11s with that combination, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But if you go with cam, headers, fully worked intake, larger throttle body, go 90-10s for the suspension, rear seat delete, lightweight seats, pull weight wherever you can, it's not outside of the range of possibility at all. And it'd be a fun car to drive too. Well, hang on. All right. So, other things, I like updates on the channel. I am going to start trying to put out more content more regularly. I've got a couple of videos in the queue. One thing though is like what we're doing right now. This is basically how I make my videos. If you haven't noticed already, there's not a whole lot of editing to it. It's basically me and you hanging out, sometimes enjoying a beverage. Typically, I'm not drinking while I'm on camera, but the idea is it's supposed to be very informal. I do have a couple of videos that are in the queue that I'll be releasing next week, but I don't. Let's see. I don't have any, big plans as far as, getting rid of the car or, ooh, this next to come. I'm not doing anything like that. Definitely sticking with the SRT for the foreseeable future, at least. Let's see. D-Mob, what are the cars in your dream garage? Man, I got to tell you, brother, I've got, first of all, 69 Roadrunner. Black on black with a big block. That's number one. A second car would be probably a Demon. Mainly, I've just had so much fun with those cars. I just really love that car a lot, so probably a Demon. Third on the list would be a 67 Corvette. And last on that list, because I don't want to get greedy here, would probably be an '03 Lightning. I just love Lightnings. Those are some of my favorite cars. For a future dream garage, whatever the new Viper is going to turn out to be, because I will always have a soft spot in my heart for those cars. I've had a lot of fun with those things. Is ceramic bearing snake oil? Yeah, kinda. So the thing with ceramic bearings is it's not snake oil per se. So to give you an idea, from an MDE perspective, it's mechanical design engineering perspective, the reason why you use ceramic bearings is not only for friction, but they don't heat up like a standard steel ball bearing. When a steel ball bearing gets hot, it expands. So a ceramic bearing can be made, the ball itself can be made to be larger, and they don't thermally expand or contract the way that the metal ones do, which means that your tolerances can be tighter. That's the idea with ceramic bearings. Now, in fact, there's some areas where you have to use ceramic bearings, but most of those are aerospace applications, and they have more to do with gyroscopic, the way a satellite will actually be maneuvered to point. You've got gyroscopes that'll zing up and then shut down, or they'll spin it slowly and stop it to actually get it to pivot and look where you want it to look. All of those bearings now have to be ceramic, because if they're not, because of extreme heat and cold, expand, contract, those bearings can fail. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic. It has nothing to do with cars. But that being said, is it snake oil? Not at all. Is it worth the money? It depends on the application. But it'd be pretty cool to have a full set of ceramic bearings in a supercharger. That'd be pretty sweet. But no, getting back to it, I'm not really planning on doing anything with a car in terms of, trading it in. I know a lot of guys are getting away from the 392 cars and moving to Hellcats right now because the cost on Hellcats has gone down so much, which is great if you're in the market for a used 392 car. But it kind of sucks in a way if you are in the market for a 392 car and plan on doing a lot of mods to it because aftermarket's just really not there for them. Let's see. Bear with me just 1 second, y'all. Some of these are kind of... So, Derek, there's also a ton of Challengers on the road, just as there are Mustangs. I'll have both. I'll tell you what, man. The thing about the Challenger for me over the Mustang was the fact that the car just had a better feel to drive. There's a lot of Daimler Chrysler, there's a lot of the Daimler, the Mercedes-Benz. The Challenger's got a lot of that DNA running through it. One of the things I liked about the Challenger and the Charger, for that matter, is that they're a lot more stable at speed, and you would kind of expect it to be that way because they're based basically off of a W211 Mercedes platform, which is a known stable car at very high speeds on the Autobahn. That's kind of what they were made for. In fact, my E63 was an M156 W211, so... thank you, Hayden. I appreciate that. Immunology, ceramic bearings make the wheels turn easier? Not really. In that application, there's not going to be enough heat to warrant using a ceramic bearing for heating and contraction. If there were true benefits to it, you would see OE manufacturers on the high-end cars, not for the Mopar, Chevy, or Ford. You would start to see that more on super high-end applications, like getting into maybe even into F1. I don't even know if they're using ceramic bearings on F1 cars. So they may be using titanium bearings, but I'm not sure that they would be using ceramic, probably because of the hardness of ceramic. I would say that you may get into an issue with that thing breaking as opposed to just flexing like you would with a metal. So and also shock, dealing with issues with shock. Ceramics don't do as well with that, so they're a whole lot better with steady, heavy loads than they are being able to cope with shock. So that's probably why you don't see a whole lot of that out there. If there is somebody doing it, I'm not aware of it. I haven't really been keeping up with it, I guess, in that respect. But again, I wouldn't really bother too much with that. Let's see. What about ceramic ball bearing turbo? Yeah, absolutely. In a turbo, because you've got a lot of thermal. The delta between both sides of a turbo is so significant that you would want to have a ceramic bearing in that respect, and because you've got so much. You'll go from basically ambient to high heat to then cooling off more rapidly. In that case, if you have a ceramic bearing, you can have tighter tolerances. Not as much expansion contraction, makes things run a little bit cooler, and keeps things in tolerance. In other words, you don't have stuff wobbling around too much. Thanks, Gat. I appreciate it. B. Mason, how would you set up a car for the farm truck daily driver challenge? I would set that thing up set to kill, my brother. So in your case, you're coming into this at a bit of a disadvantage. You've got a truck there that has got a big block with a lot of nitrous and a lot of converter. That thing is a monster, a lot more nasty than what you would be led to believe. But for the Demon, I just set that thing to kill with as much rubber as you can get on the road. That truck's main advantage is its ability to launch super consistently. So get as much power to the ground as fast as you possibly can, and cheat a lot. Sneaky Pete Nitro System on the way soon. I would also say that it's tough when you're going up against a platform like that, because there's so many ways to make so much power with a big block Chevrolet. Possibly another video to come, but I mean, Chevrolet has been doing that. I mean, that is the benefit to Chevrolet. It's just how much power you can make with that platform, and that's not just wide open throttle power. I mean, you can build a tow truck motor and a drag race engine out of the same block and just swap heads and cam and intake manifold. Let's see. Scat 426. Can a stock Scat Pack run 11s? Damn right it can. You get that thing on a tire, take just a little bit of weight out of it, whatever you can, just whatever is removable from the car. You don't even take out a passenger seat. But again, that car on a tire in real good air, it's absolutely known to run 11s. In fact, there's been a few guys that have run 11s on the summer tires, just basically heating them up and treating them like drag radials. Now, it does take really good air to do it. I'm not even going to say that you can do it in air that isn't mine shaft, but yes, to answer your question, it can be done, and it has been done. Let's see, what else? Trying to think about upcoming topics. There's going to be, I'm going to be posting one up later tonight. This is one, it's, what are your preferences, 1/8 mile versus 1/4 mile? I filmed it. I didn't film anything. I took the video of this a while back. As you guys can tell, I mean, this is basically the same way I do my videos, so I didn't, there's really no editing. It's not quite as good as I would like for it to be, but it's a cool topic, so it's going to be 1/8 mile versus 1/4 mile. Another video that's going to be coming out here fairly soon is going to be, if the Challenger wasn't out there, what car would I have sitting in my garage right now? So that one will be coming out hopefully here fairly soon, but we'll see. It's just stuff I got to do. I got a honeydew list that's about as tall as a giraffe's ass. I got to get on that too. Let's see. Hayden, 05 to 10 Charger RT. What are my thoughts on him, and would I ever consider one to do a budget build? If so, what would I do to it? Actually, the thought has crossed my mind on more than one occasion to do one of even. So I don't know if I would really want to nag one car, but I have toyed around with the idea of picking up a Charger, mainly because it would make a fun daily hot rod. One of the reasons why I wouldn't get one, though, would be because of that nag one, and that there's not a lot of gearing options available. But as far as getting into the cars, those cars are not as expensive as the 8-speed cars, so they're easier to get into. The stuff that I would do to it, if I were to put one together, it would be for like a daily driver, something that would be comfortable, fast, sound good, all that kind of good stuff. And I mean, it would be the basics. It would be engine tune, trans tune, exhaust, and I would probably just leave it at that. I wouldn't try to take that platform too far, mainly because if you try to take it too far, you're going to, especially when you get into the gearing, it just depends on what your tolerance is for RPM going down the freeway, and what your budget's going to be, because don't forget, it's a Mopar, you're going to have to pay Mopar tax, so that kind of always sucks. But boost how tall is the giraffe's ass? Fucking tall, man. Let's see. Getting back to the Nag One car. There's really not a downside to that car. Um, if you can find one though, I would definitely get an SRT version of that car. The 345 horse 5.7 is a good engine, but don't really know if I would be able to spend a lot of time, money, or effort with that particular platform. And I will go so far as to say this: when it comes to budget builds, just remember that we're talking about a budget. We have a finite amount of money. We got to buy a car and we got to get mods. Take the amount of money that you would spend plus the amount of mods you would throw at the car. See if you can find a stock 8-speed car that would fall into that budget. That's what I would do. Just because you're coming into the game with a lot more advantages than what you'd be coming into with that Nag 1. Oh, Jay, Michigan Air right now is great for the quarter mile. You know what, man? I bet it is. And I bet it's not raining. And I bet that it is probably sitting around, I don't know, about 500-foot DA. I wish I was there, man. It's a real pretty time of year to be in Michigan. Yeah, we've been dealing with rain down here, and it will not stop. It's every Friday for, I think, the last 3 weeks it's rained. And we got rained out this past weekend, so that was a real treat. Man, we have been going on for over an hour. This is crazy. Let's see. Hayden, is it true they all come with open diffs, even the SRT? No, they have. They do have limited slip. Scat 426. It's dry in Cali. I just got back from Long Beach last night. Justin, shop is flooded. Oh, I hate to hear that. Well, the weather was fantastic in Long Beach. Derek, did you ever go out to Rankin before it was taken over by? Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. A long time ago, but yeah, that was back when I had, let's see, I had my 96 GTS, had my 89 GT, had my 94 Cobra with a 427 and the Coons Company 427 and a T trim. Yeah, I was out there quite a bit, as a matter of fact. Got my hide tanned a few times learning the game, but yeah, absolutely. In fact, that white 94 Cobra got to a point where I couldn't buy a race with that car. Yeah, that thing, as a matter of fact, that was my first 9-second car. Was that car? It was 94 Cobra, Coons & Company 427, T trim, making 14 pounds of boost, and then it went to 16 pounds of boost. On Biasply, ET Streets would run 980s, 990s. That's a 5-speed car, too. Had a TKO in it that I had a nasty habit of bending the output shaft, the splines on the output shaft on that transmission. I didn't break them. I actually bent them. In fact, couldn't get the yoke off of the output shaft. That was a nasty car. Let's see. What do we got? Steven, keep it rolling, man. We're going to keep it rolling, brother. That's what we're here to do. Oh, that's good. Glad to hear your shop's okay, Justin. Damn, I hate to hear that. Man, everywhere in Houston's getting flooded. I don't know if you guys have seen any videos or any shots of Galveston right now, but there's parts of Galveston that are, in some of the streets had, at least earlier today, about 1.5 feet of water. Before the speed bumps, yeah. No shit, right? Thanks, Jace, man. I appreciate that. Makes me feel good. Hoping I can help out. Hoping I'm not confusing stuff too. Let's see. Oh yeah, back in the day, Derek was saying about all the hot rod stuff and down here in Houston. So back in the day, Rankin Road, what he's asking about, Rankin Roads was a real hot spot for drag racing back in the day. You had quite a few areas. You had Rankin Road, you had Center Street in Pasadena was another one. Yeah, so we used to go out there. Also, Red Bluff was another place we used to do a lot of racing. Parts of 288 were fair game. This when I was younger, and it was just basically street racing at its finest. I mean, it was basically eighth mile and get out there and even if it wasn't even marked off, I mean, half the time it was just go down to here or there. But anyway, yeah, it was a pretty badass scene back in the day, man. Some fond memories, man. Here come the police. Yeah, believe me, yeah. Uh, if you're familiar with 10 codes, 1094 was actually used to be on my license plate. Let's see. Well, cool, man. This has been fun. Like I say, I've never done one of these live shows before, so I appreciate everybody, jumping in. So, you guys have anything else? Shoot, man. I'll be up here for probably about the next. Looks like I got about 10 minutes on this one. So if you got anything else, man, throw it out there. We're coming up on almost an hour and a half. Can you believe that? An hour and a half of me. My wife can't even stand me for that long in one shot. Let's see. Drove a metallic. This is Friday Fox Body Fan Club. Says I drove a metallic green 72 Mercury Comet GT back in the late 80s. Man, I got to tell you something. That I never saw your car, but that was a little bit before me. But I'll tell you this. That's really where you got to see some of those old school muscle cars really shine. That was where that was just their environment, wasn't it? There was, what was the guy's name? He had like a cream colored Torino GT that was a badass. Anyway, that's one of this reminded me of Saw 4, but anyway, that was a cool one. I like that one a lot. How about an update? Oh, this is D. How about an update on all the mods to achieve the 310 to 60? So the mods on the car are pretty simple. It's pipes, performance tunes, engine tune, trans tune, cat delete pipe, and the drag pack that's on the car was, I should say, 185 50 18s in front and 305 45s were in the back. I don't know how accurate that was, mainly because of the tire size variation. Realistically, that 0 to 60 was probably, looking back at it, is probably like a 3.4, 3.5. So not as quick as 3.1, but still definitely in the ballpark. My quickest ever 0 to 60 on stock wheels and tires, or stock, I should say stock wheels with a drag radial, by the way, is 3.2 at the drag strip. That's with no weight reduction to speak of at all, by the way. But that's about it. I mean, there's nothing else done to the car other than, ported intake, which, man, I got to be on the fence with that one. Larger throttle body. It's a Fastman 84. That's really it. It's the only stuff that's made a difference in terms of making power. Let's see. Just make a cheers. Cheers. As a matter of fact, cheers, Justin. What are we drinking tonight? We are drinking Abita from our neighboring brothers and sisters in Louisiana. Frank Davis wants to ask, what's the deal with pinning the crank when modding the pulleys? Tried to research, couldn't find anything. Frank, that's a fantastic question. So the reason why you want to pin the crank is the balancer and the pulley, which is part of the balancer assembly, is actually press fit onto the crank. There's nothing actually keeping the crank from spinning on that balancer. So with superchargers, you're putting a parasitic load on that crank with that supercharger. It's actually pretty significant. And without the pins to lock that pulley in place, you can actually get the balancer and of course the anything that's attached to the balancer and the pulley itself to actually turn on that crankshaft. So definitely not a good look. So pin it, locks everything in place, keeps you from spinning a balancer off. I've seen that happen before, by the way. It's not pretty. Hey, thanks, Fangs. Appreciate you, man. It says awesome chat, man. I appreciate that. Who wins, farm truck or demonology? Doesn't matter. Demonology snatches his soul, so that's all that matters. The Fry fan club, the Buick Grand National was a talk dog. Damn, you ain't bullshit. Okay, so there were actually, for you guys, Fox Body fan clubs talking about some back in the day ranking stuff. That would be some street racing that was going on in Houston. When the guys figured out how to make a Grand National fast, that car was basically wrecking shop at Rankin. If you had a Grand National, you were not able to get a race after about the first year those cars were out and actually being modded. Scat 426, get drag radials for your car, buddy. You're going to wish you'd have done it the day you picked up the car. Thanks for keeping your shirt on. We don't want that kind of life. Yeah, believe me. Here lately, you don't want to see me with my shirt on. Let's see. Justin, he's suggesting a two-step for the 5.7 so I can leave on boost. Yeah, who's making it? Shit, I can't remember off the top of my head. There's there are some options for the two-step, but they do not come in the tuning software. Unfortunately, wish you could. But any two-step setup should work fine. JH Pedal Commander, yes or no? Yeah, why not? They're fun to play with. It's not going to hurt anything. And yeah, all you're doing is you're telling the computer that the pedal is further down than it really is. Donald, 69 Roadrunner. Yes, good God. Kills me. Okay, so for you guys who don't know about the 69 Roadrunner thing, I did a video called The One That Got Away. And it's, as car guys, we all have that one that got away. It's buried somewhere in my playlist. If you get a chance, check it out. But basically, it's me chronicling and doing my level best to hold back tears about a 69 Roadrunner that actually was in negotiations with a guy, got sold out from underneath me. That was going to be the car I probably would have had forever. But tried to find another one, couldn't really ever find another one. But yeah, 69 Roadrunner for me is at the top of the list. To you, what's up, man? Yes, we are live. Let's see. Gameward Retro. What are my thoughts on the 2017 Coyote Mustang? It's a badass car, man. You will not hear me complaining or talking down on a Mustang. They're in right now terms, they're a really good car. I mean, you get a lot for the money. You can mod them to whatever you want that car to be. Drag race, road race. If you're big into autocross, you can do that with it. Good street car. Roll race guy, whatever you want, you can build that out of a Mustang. And out of respect for the brand, because that brand of Mustang kept the pony cars alive when there was no Mopar and there was no Camaro. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But it just depends on what you're going to want to do with it. That car's got a lot of upshot. Just remember that you are going to be spending some money. If you're going to do it right to build a fast version of that car, you're going to need to coin up, because ain't nothing going to be cheap or free, but you've got a lot of upshot for potential as far as making a fast car out of it. B Mason, what's your best 0 to 60 on the drag strip? Documented 3.2 seconds, and repeated 3.3 seconds. On the street, legit documented 3.6, 3.5 in good weather with a good tire hooking up. Other than that, typically 3.7. Thoughts on swapping an NA03 Monte Carlo SS? This is from Dominique. Uh, 03SS. I forget which classification is that one. I can't remember which LS class that is. Anyway, too many Abitas tonight. They're fine. Just keep in mind your transmission is going to be the limiting factor on that car. D-Power still have mine best at 1069 at 124. Fast car. Miss the old days, man. Also, those GM Swap 280s. Yeah, it's sick to death. Who was the guy that had the 383? He had a 383 with a glide running God only knows how much nitrous. Black 240, I think is what it was. I don't even think that guy, I don't even know if that guy's still alive. That guy was old back then. D talking about his son can't touch him with his Mustang. That happens a lot, man. And this is not a knock on the Mustangs, guys. So D, if your son is watching, this isn't a knock on Mustangs, but I have yet to lose to a stock Mustang. Would you recommend bowlers for a 392 or do you prefer another brand? This is for chasing cars. I actually like the Magnaflows quite a bit. But again, the Borlas are good. Realistically, you with an X pipe, which is what the 392s come with, you want a flow through design. You don't want a chambered muffler with an X pipe. So I would say just find one with a body where you can see through it, or that the muffler has got like you can see through it. It's got the X, and then it may come out. Just do like a deal where it X's and goes around. Those are good. You just don't want a chambered muffler. So anything, as long as it's not a chambered muffler, you're in good shape. Let's see. What else we got? Yeah. Scat 426. I'm getting Tri 5Rs with 17s, drag radials. Yeah. Bravado tributes. Yeah, sure, man. A lot of guys run Bravado tributes. They're a little on the heavy side, but it doesn't matter. They're going to be a little bit lighter than your stock setup is. And to be honest with you, unless you are really hunting a time, I wouldn't worry too much about the weight of the wheel. If you're going aftermarket, it's probably going to be a little bit lighter than stock anyway. Although the stock wheels are not very heavy. The tributes are good. Like I say, a lot of guys have run them. I don't know of too many failures with them. So yeah, go for it. Let's see. Check out the new, the pull and pay. I tell you what, I need to run out there. I need to see if I can find some more intake manifold support. That's a good call, by the way. Thanks for reminding me about that. That was from Donald Powers, by the way. Mike, yeah, 3-2. Beast y'all. Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Yeah, so the NAG one, the only downside to the NAG one is the cool. Let me start with the upside. The upside of the NAG one is they have a bit looser converter from the factory, so they've got that working for them. And there's really no penalty. And I want to make sure this is clear. There's no penalty to having a NAG one. It's just that when you compare it to the 8-speed cars, they have more of. So with an 8-speed car, you have more of a chance to where you can downshift into a gear, or as you're going through the gears, just from a roll-on, not necessarily wide open where you're going to command a downshift. You just don't have as many of those flat spots, so to speak, with the 8-speed as you do the NAG 1. There are plenty of really fast NAG 1 cars, so don't think that that's holding you back, because it's absolutely not. Billy Owen, what are my thoughts on long tube headers on a Hellcat? That's what I'm guessing. Lose boost, but makes engine more efficient. Yeah, okay. And then he talks about 7.2 clutch pulley with headers versus 285 93 octane. All right, there's a lot of ways we can go with this one. Let's just talk about long tube headers first. Yeah, slight advantage to the Hellcat for long tubes, only because the Hellcat cam has more duration than the cam does in the 392. If you're going to go with long tubes on the Hellcat, go with the 2-inch. Don't even waste your time with 1 7/8. 272 clutched or 285 on 93. Go with the 285 on 93. Not that there's anything wrong with the clutch pulley. I just would rather have less mass on the snout, although it is a little bit easier on the snout to have it clutch. So, kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen to another on that one. Haven't seen any failures with the non-clutched pulley, but that's not to discount the fact that the 2015s did have problems with the bearings and the snout. So, if you've got the new bearings, you're in good shape. You don't get those fixed before you do anything to that car. Let's see. Gamer and Retro. Good question. If I could have one car from the 80s or 90s, what would I have? Ah, man. Well, that would be a two-part question. From the 80s, we're talking Grand National every single time. Closely followed by, I think they were out in the 80s, either a Typhoon or a Cyclone. That would be pretty cool. I'm also assuming we're talking about American cars. In the 90s, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna cap that at 1997, and I'm gonna go with, or I'm sorry, 1999. I would go with an ACR Viper, just like what I used to have. That would be my car from the 90s. Although, yeah, I'm going to say that would be my choice. And of those cars, comparing the two, God, man, I'd love to have a Grand National. Those are so sweet. Actually, yeah, GNX, by the way, would be the way I would go. Let's see. Justin, do y'all port intakes in-house? Technically, I port intakes at my house. When I have the opportunity, I do work on the intakes, but they're typically for in-house customers, and it's just something that if the car's going to be there for a while and they want to have it done, then I'll get it knocked out. I don't have any I don't have like an exchange program or anything like that yet, but I have thought about putting that together. It's just that to do the intakes the right way, it takes a little bit of time. And the worst part about the 392 intake manifolds is that no two are alike. Without dragging out props again, the issue with the manifolds is that they have a lot of core shift. It's several pieces come together to make the intake manifold. And what ends up happening is that the middle piece can slide fore, aft, around, the top can slide. So you end up basically no two are the same, and some will take more work than others. The one that is on my car right now, since we're talking about intake manifolds, the one that is on my car right now is the absolute worst intake manifold I ever saw in my life. That's including GM stuff, Ford, you name it. That is the worst intake I've ever seen in terms of core shift, and it's performing really well on my car, but it took me forever to get that thing sorted out. That one that I was showing earlier is actually the stock manifold off of my car, and it's easily identified because it's got paint splatter on it from the factory. So, kind of little Easter egg there for you. Chasing cars, any common issues you run into with your 392? If so, any preventative maintenance for them? No, I haven't had any problems, but problems that I have seen have been in ultra rare cases. Lifter failures. Lifters is basically making noise, but a lot of that went away in 2015 anyway, in terms of Hemis having issues with lifters. I've heard some of them just flat out making noise. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I got to tell you, I've got no complaints with my car. And keep in mind that my car is probably logged more passes down a drag strip and more trips to and has been strapped to a dyno more than any other 392 that I'm aware of, with a stock cam, stock valve train. So that said, it does have, I forgot about this earlier, it does have a set of Stanky tie bars and locks on it. And that's a valve train stability thing. And the only reason for that is because it does spend so much time on a drag strip and on the dyno, or it was spending that much time. It's more of a durability thing and a safety thing than it is a performance gain. Although it did pick up a little bit of torque with those, which is kind of weird. Let's see. Hassan. Cool name, man. I wish I had a cool name like Hassan. Brian never did really fit me, I don't think. What are my thoughts on the 1320? Good question, my man. I am on the fence with the 1320. I don't really feel like it's a far enough step in the right direction. I think it's a good step in the right direction in that they're building something for the naturally aspirated guys, but I would have liked to seen them make it a bit more one-off, so to speak. I would have liked to see maybe more aggressive gearing. Some type of a bump in power would have been great. Maybe a revised intake manifold for the 392. Something that the rest of us could take advantage of and have fun with. Because as it sits, it's basically just a warmed under, if you want to call it anything. It's just a undressed scat pack, and even that's a bit of a stretch because there's not a lot there. And aside from the two-step that it's going to come with from the factory, which isn't going to do you a whole lot of good that I'm aware of anyway, for that car, I don't know. But hey, look, at least they're doing something, right? I mean, something's better than nothing. But then again, sometimes doing something that sucks is worse than doing nothing at all. So, let's see. Cameron Retro. If I had 15 grand for a project car, what would you do? Fox body Mustang. And that's all there is to say about that. Or, actually, you know what? I take that back. If I had 15 grand to spend, I would do 99 Mustang, because the heads are, oh, actually, screw that. I would put PI heads on a Romeo block, which would be 96, 97, 98. Get your bump and compression, put a set of Sean Highland cams in the car, put a bullet intake on that thing, and then because we're kind of at a limited budget here, we're kind of coming up on it, put a set of 430 gears in that car, and probably some, like a McLeod clutch or something like that, and a set of subframe connectors, and I would rip shit with that platform. That would probably be the hot rod I would build. Or get an F-body and, throw nitrous at an LS. But that's the way I would probably go. Let's see. Only because I've had a lot of fun with a combination very similar to that. Let's see. Siphon X says that himself and a friend had an argument over the most iconic American sports car. He says Mustang, I say Corvette. What do you say? Well, you said Corvette, and you would be right because the Mustang isn't a sports car, whereas the Corvette is a true sports car. Mustang is it's a 2+2, which basically makes it a coupe, not necessarily a sports car. So, not to mention, unless we're talking about early on in Corvette days, you can't get a Corvette with a 6-cylinder, and Mustangs are running around basically as a secretary's conveyance. So, anyway, you won that argument. JH, I've seen videos of battery drain on new Charger and Challenger. Is this with nothing plugged in? I've heard Uconnect coming on by itself. I haven't heard anything like that. Anything like that, yeah, I mean, there could be some issue. Uconnect, which shouldn't be coming on, though, by itself. That's actually, I'm not sure that you can do that. But if you can do that, that would freak me out, because I don't need my Uconnect coming on unless I'm telling it to come on. Make sure I'm not forgetting anybody in here. Oh, Justin asked, going back up here a little bit, what about the 5.7 trike manifold? Would I do one of those if I supplied the manifold? I haven't messed with the 5.7 manifolds that much. Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal to port it. It just depends on if you're going to get anything out of it. Again, you got to keep in mind that some are a lot better than others. And if you pull the manifold off and it's in really good shape, you're really not going to get too much out of porting that manifold unless you're talking about porting the throat area on that manifold to make it work better with a larger throttle body. But the rest of it, it's just more in the design than anything else. You're just not going to pick up a whole lot there. It would take a bit more of a redesign on that intake to get it to work well than it would to just open one up a little bit. But I haven't heard of the 5.7s being as bad as the 6.4s though. So just keep that in the back of your mind. The 6.4s look like shit, man. I'm telling you, they are brutal. Ooh. Oh, Jake, talking about the auto update. I haven't had one do. We're still getting back. Jake was reminding me about the Uconnect auto update. I haven't had one do an auto update unless it was telling me that it was about to do an update. So that was with the key on. Let's see. Billy Owen says, so I have a 2018 wide body Hellcat, nice car, and I ordered it with the M6. Love my manuals. Unfortunately, gearing in the transmission seems to be the issue. Thoughts on re-gearing the trans? Not worth it. If you want, it depends on where you're at in terms of how you're feeling about how that car is geared. You can always, if you don't like the way that it's geared, if you feel like it's geared too short, there's a couple of options available for you. You go 309, stretch those gears out a little bit, or you can pull the 370 out and go the 392 that comes in the manual 392 cars. It just so happens the gear ratio is the same as the displacement, but it's a 3.92. That might make it a little bit snappier for you. By the way, if it were my car, that's exactly what I would do. If I had a manual Hellcat of any flavor, it would absolutely get the 392 gears in it. Let's see. BVK, I know you said the NAG 1 is not all that bad, but is it possible to put the A8 in a 14 Charger? Is it possible? The right amount of money, brother, anything is possible. But is it something that I would jump in the middle of? Not at all. It would cost you more to do that swap than it would be to just save up that amount of money and trade the car in on a car with an 8-speed. Scat 426, this is a great question. Have I tried the 370 gears from a manual Hellcat yet? No, sir, I have not. However, I have toyed around with that idea, and the math would suggest that it may not be a benefit, only because the transmission would shift and I would be going through the traps at a fairly low RPM. Basically, I would have burned through the first 5 gears, and it would shift into 6 within necessarily a bad thing, but the RPM would be low, and it would be rapid succession. It would be bam, 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 bam. The where the 392 shines is where when in the 8-speed especially, when the RPM drops, it is sitting in a nice fat juicy part of the torque curve. The 370 is still going to drop it down to the same area, but you're going to be burning through that gear kind of quickly. It's not going to do any favors in terms of launching. However, if you do the math on it, it actually is ideal for launching the car on a real sticky tire, that 370 gear. It's just at the top end of the track where you might be a little bit, you might suffer a little bit. I have been toying around with the idea of doing it though, so don't be shocked if that ends up happening to my car, just for data acquisition. Let's see. Chasing cars. Do you know if there's a significant difference between the Scat Pack wide body suspension and the 1518 SRT suspension? There is. It depends on how you option the car. You can still get the SRT suspension. The Scat Pack suspension is basically, it's got a little bit different spring rate than the SRT does, and the springs in the SRT are a little bit shorter. That's why they look like they're lowered, is because they're lowered just a little bit. They've got the same spring setup as a Hellcat. I don't know if for the wide body, if there's any changes. I doubt it. only because there's no real reason in terms of actual load bearing capabilities. That spring setup would be fine on a wide body. So I don't think there's going to be too much of an issue there, but you never know. Pisses me off they don't have the SRT anymore, too. Hassan, this is awesome. Dodge Demon sausage, Shelby GT 500 Vienna sausage. Now you see why the small meat stays in the can. That's pretty funny, man. I like it. Phoenix 98 recommended throttle body for 392. Fast man 84 millimeter, 100%. Like that throttle body a lot. Oh, Justin. So what intake? What I think would be good intake for the manifold in the 5.7? 11 pounds of boost. Stock one, man. Stock one works great. There's nothing wrong with the stock manifold. It's just, in terms of being ideal, there's really not an ideal intake out there. But, and especially if you're boosting, because if you've got a pressurized plenum and pressurized runners, the only thing that you would be looking for more of would be volume, and or it would be, obviously a shorter runner if you want to make more power up top. But again, with a turbo, depending on the cam setup that you've got, you'll be fine. I mean, there's no reason to, in my opinion anyway, there's no reason to really overthink that part of the build. Maybe go with a true ported throttle body. It's maybe a slightly larger throttle body just to, give you a little bit more throttle response with any kind of given throttle input voltage. But I mean, that can be changed in the tune as well. So that just depends. There's some stuff I really wouldn't want to, you don't want to overburden yourself with being overly concerned with. I mean, as long as the intake manifold is, holding boost, then you'll be fine. I'd rather have the longer runner anyway to have off throttle torque production. Game Retro, what do you look for in a car? Handling, acceleration, or top speed? Well, I can take two of those out of the equation straight away. Top speed doesn't do me any good because I don't ever do VMAX with cars that much anymore. It's not like it was back in the day where you could kind of get away with that kind of stuff with the Vipers and throwing a ton of nitrous at them. I mean, we do some pretty stupid things, but 200 miles an hour was the goal, and it was fairly easily met on several occasions. So top speed, I'm really not all that interested in. Handling is interesting because handling isn't really handling like it used to be. Cars that used to handle would only be able to be compared to their contemporaries, and it wasn't that long ago where a good handling car like a 350Z, for example, lots of fun to drive. And I've owned one. It was a great car. In fact, when I lived in Northern California, it was a riot to run the mountains up there and take that thing out in La Honda, do a PCH run with that thing. And it handled great. So in that environment, it does well. But the reality is that all modern cars handle fairly well. In other words, even if you are going significantly higher than the posted speed limit, you're not exceeding the limitations of that car in dry weather with a good, healthy set of tires on it. So to me, handling almost takes a back seat to acceleration, only in that it's a lot more fun to drive a car through twisties that doesn't handle well, where you can feel the whole weight of the thing and, you get a little bit more of a handful than it is to have something that's just super precise and, point, click, point, click, point, click. If you want to do that, man, get a bike. I mean, that's really my thoughts on it. I've got countless laps at Thunderhill on my old bike, and if I want something that does that, I'm going to get a thrill out of it, then I'm going to move to a different platform. I want something that's going to excite me, not make me feel like I'm a better driver, which, to be honest with you, that's what a lot of these new cars do. they handle so well that they take you out of the equation. And I like something that, I'm driving the thing. I want to have fun with it. .84 millimeter. That's a lot of turbo. That's right. That thing spools up quick too. Yeah, I would hold what you got for now. This is, by the way, this is for Justin. LOD is supposed to be coming out with a manifold middle of next year for our cars. So, hold off on that. If they do, I am going to be the guinea pig for the Hemi intake manifold. So, waiting on those guys to get their act together. But they're coming, so we'll see. Chase Cars, do I think they're updating the Challenger Charger platform or scrapping them from something new? I don't know. I mean, you remember the old rumors where there was going to be put on the Julia platform, and that got scrapped. Then it was the Ghibli platform that it was going to be put towards. That sounds like it's been scrapped, and they're looking to revamp the LX platform. So, I don't know. They're keeping everybody guessing, but honestly, at this stage of the game, whatever they do, it's going to work out great. I've got full confidence that, if they can just act like they're trying, take a couple 100 pounds out of the thing at least, it'll be fine. I don't think that they need to go to any of the other platforms to do that. I think there's plenty of room in that LX platform, to be honest with you, to extract weight, some different ways to gain rigidity and remove material as well. So another area to lose weight. And I think they can do that, and it'll be a great platform. I think it's going to look good too. I really do. Son, please tell me that your setup is giving the 2018 5.0 the business. I'll tell you something, Hassan. Not only is it giving it the business, it's giving it all the business it can handle. Because I haven't lost one race on the drag strip to one of those cars yet. Haven't run one from a roll. I typically don't do a lot of roll racing, only because I prefer to keep my driving record as pristine as I can these days. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit more than what they got to get Shalandra, give Shalandra a hard time. Yeah, Billy Owens, first gear in the Hellcat can reach almost 58 miles an hour. That's a bit of a problem. Yeah, first gear is a bit of a stretch in that thing. That's why I was saying, man, re-gear that thing. Why do I have headers mounted to the table behind you? You mean the one that's sitting on the rims? I mean, the rims didn't want any part of that? Actually, the headers are there to act as holders for my remote control. And those are actually, that's actually a good question. As a matter of fact, if you've never seen a set of 1999 stock ACR Viper exhaust manifolds, that's what they look like. And they look like hell too. The fact these things were even put on a car is laughable, but get a load of that. Yes, that is pinched from the factory. So now that's what they do. There you go. Hope that answers that question. All right, guys. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours. I think I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank y'all very much for being a part of my first ever live show. Hope to do it again soon. Y'all have a great one. That's a wrap on this one. Adios.